My wife is cheating on me with her old boyfriend. I have always heard that misery brings misery. If you do not make the necessary changes in your life, your situation will always be the same. Sometimes emotionally broken people tend to choose someone with the same condition, but on the opposite side. As was the case with the person who is telling you this story, who had the false belief that he had the power to change an emotionally damaged woman, so that she fills the emotional needs that he had. In this video you will see how I really found out that my wife was cheating on me with an ex-boyfriend, but also the real emotional reasons behind all her lies, obsessive behavior, false pregnancy, self-deception, narcissistic behavior and my wife's manipulative behavior to get what she wanted without any regrets. For some reason, as a result of my foolish love, I thought that my wife had learned something in high school about her wild behavior. A mistake on my part, for which I am paying the consequences right now. After my wife was emotionally broken due to the loss of a pregnancy that only existed in her mind, I decided to find out who really was my wife. Maybe at that time, I refused to accept that my wife was that same girl in high school who only thought of herself, who took advantage of the weaknesses of others, who manipulated people to get what she wanted, and many times she used sex as a weapon to get what she wanted from boys. I paid a visit to the bar where my wife works as a way of letting her former coworker know about my wife's situation. After speaking with several of them, I got the impression that my wife did not have a good working relationship with her former coworkers. Such an attitude made me more curious to know more about my wife's life after she finished high school. One of her coworkers who got my wife the job told me that she regretted recommending my wife, who only brought a lot of conflict to everyone who works at the bar including customers, and let's not talk about her ex-boyfriend, to whom she accused many times of domestic violence, speaking lies to the police authorities, all because he was determined to leave that toxic relationship he had with her. My wife's former coworker told me that apart from emotionally abusing her ex-boyfriend, there were many times that she cheated on him without any remorse with clients of this bar, who sometimes slept with her because she was an easy girl who had sex just for pleasure, not even for money, which damaged the reputation of the other waitresses in this bar who did an honest job. She also told me, if I thought my wife wasn't cheating on me with other men, I was fooling myself. The old waitress repeated to me several times that when a woman cheats on a man for the first time, believing that she won't cheat anymore is a fantasy that men have, believing they are special. Your wife doesn't care who she makes suffer as long as she gets what she wants. It is something that you will learn if you continue to live with an emotionally broken woman, a woman who is only using you, although she never admits it, who uses her body and beauty to control men. The old waitress, when I say that, I'm not talking about age, I'm talking about time at work. This woman, in a condescending tone towards me, told me that, if I wanted to know who my wife was so I could ask her ex-boyfriend, a poor man, she put in jail several times lying to the police, because he refused to go back to her. Your wife is a beautiful woman, but emotionally damaged, lying, controlling and abusive, who does not care about the suffering of another, especially towards men. Perhaps that is why God has not wanted to give her children as punishment for all the evil that she has made it to the men who lay eyes on her. If I were you, I would run as fast as possible from her. None of us want to tell you, for fear of your reaction, but several weeks before your wife quit her job, she was dating a client, and it seems the wife found out and came to the bar to tell your wife to go out with her husband, because he was a married man. Your wife replied that it was not her fault, that her husband would find her much more attractive and interesting than her. When I heard that my wife had been married to me for several months when that happened, or if it happened, she could be cheating on me with another man. It was a very bitter pill for me to swallow, but it was something that I had some suspicion that could happen, knowing part of the story. My wife, a grown woman right now, who seems to be having the same promiscuity and wild behavior as the girl I met during high school who had sex just to have it. That she was cheating on me with another man was not out of the question. But, like every man accepting that your wife is cheating on you, it is something that you do not want to accept. When I heard the story of the former worker of the restaurant bar where my wife used to work, I couldn't believe it. Either my wife is the best liar in the world, or the workers have something against my wife, and they want their marriage to fail. Maybe because she was one of the waitresses preferred by clients when giving tips, or jealousy of women for my wife's beauty. But, analyzing what was said by the doctor, who assured me that my wife knew that she was not expecting a child, tells me that perhaps the ex-coworkers are right. But who is really my wife? A girl I thought I knew since high school. For some reason I write down the phone number of my wife's ex-boyfriend to chat with him, and learn a little about who my wife really is. When I comes home at night, my wife asks me why I am so late. I told her that I needed to clear my head for everything that was going on. She looked at me with a smile that I did not know from my wife, saying that she really felt embarrassed by everything that was happening in our marriage, that I should not feel sad about the loss of the pregnancy, that we must continue trying and God will give us the miracle to have another child. I looked at my wife, with an expression of compression, but at the same time of sadness for her, because she still thought that she was really pregnant. My wife is such a pathological liar, that she believes her own lies as truth and tries to convince another to accept a lie as truth, because she is saying it, attitudes typical of someone with a narcissistic mentality, who sometimes gets angry, accusing you of lack of trust and affection, if you contradict the lies that she is telling. My wife was affectionate towards me and apologized for the emotional breakup the day before, promising me that it would never happen again, that the loss of her pregnancy was something that upset her during that moment of loss of control, because only she knew what so much that I wanted to have a boy. Listening to what my wife was telling me, at that very moment I remembered what my wife's doctor told me, several hours ago, that my wife was lying to me about her pregnancy, that she knew she was not pregnant, because the doctor assured her many times and still she continued to lie to me about the situation. But, my biggest concern is not my wife's emotional state, but all the things that my wife's ex-coworker told me about cheating on her ex-boyfriend, the lies, the emotional manipulation and the times my wife went out with clients of the restaurant just for sex. Several days after my wife's emotional breakdown and my desire to know more about my wife and who she really was, although from what the waitress told me I had a certain idea, but I needed to be sure. I remembered that the waitress at the bar gave me the phone number of my wife's ex-boyfriend, and without thinking of it as a way of knowing the whole truth about her, I decided to communicate with him. To my surprise, my wife's ex-boyfriend replied that he had no problem talking to me about my wife. One day later, because my wife's ex-boyfriend was busy at work, he told me to wait for them in a park known to everyone, near a bus stop where we could talk without any problem, and that he would tell me everything I wanted to know about who my wife really is. When I left work, I went to the place indicated by my wife's ex-boyfriend, and he was waiting for the bus stop in an area of the most popular park in the city. We both sat on an empty bench with a view of a beautiful lake, where people like to feed the pigeons, and he told me that the problems I am having with my wife are nothing new for him, because he has been through worse situations. He also told me that he was talking to me because the waitress where my wife works asked me to talk to you, because she saw in you a good man, who married the wrong woman. He told me that he met my wife 3 years ago while they were both working at the same workplace, and that for several years she was dating him and her ex-boyfriend from high school at the same time. In a nutshell, your wife, she has never gotten over the type of woman she was during high school, where she drew everyone's attention for her beauty, but also for how popular she was with the boys, and she still behaves as if she was a teenage girl who is in high school. Your wife and I for several years had a toxic relationship from the beginning, and let's not talk about the number of times she cheated on other men, especially the ex-boyfriend from high school, who was the captain of the football team. When she was with me, our relationship became a nightmare for me, because your wife has personality problems that she wants to deal with, which makes her a pathological lying woman, who enjoys the suffering she causes others. Many times she came home drunk, and when I complained to her she told me that I was to blame for all the problems we had as a couple, that if she cheated on me with another man it was because I couldn't please her with the things she wanted. The waitress at the restaurant bar where she used to works, they were friends since high school, and she really knows your wife's emotional situation. The restaurant waitress told me that your wife had an emotional breakdown due to the loss of a pregnancy. I can tell you that your wife was lying to you and also to the doctor who treated her. The truth is your wife can't get pregnant, and she knows it. Your wife was the product of having unprotected sex with everyone during high school, and then she contracted a sexual disease which was never treated, causing irreparable damage to her ovaries. Reasons why your wife will never be able to have children. She knows that, and her ex-boyfriend knows, who he infected your wife with that disease. The moment she found out that she couldn't have a child, She began the worst part in her relationship with the cheating of other men because she said that she didn't have infertility problems, that the problem of not being able to conceive was me who had it. If she is having a psychological pregnancy, it is something that can be expected as a result of the emotional trauma that your wife has from not having her own child, which makes her feel less of a woman than all women and more so when all her high school friends have children. Your wife doesn't want to admit that that beautiful, popular high school girl no longer exists. Does your wife really love you? I believe that she is not capable of loving anyone, not even the ex-boyfriend with whom she cheated on me many times. Is it worth trying to rescue a toxic marriage with a woman who has serious mental problems and doesn't want help? That is a question that I cannot answer for you. Something that you must understand: no matter how much you love your wife, my ex-girlfriend, your love alone is not the solution. You do not have the power to solve your spouse's emotional and mental problems, nor is it your responsibility to rescue a woman who has only used men her entire life. It took me a long time to realize that I was not responsible for the problems my ex-girlfriend had, no matter how much she tried to manipulate me so that I wouldn't think otherwise. After everything I've been saying about my ex-girlfriend, something that you have to understand: I see you as a victim of more than one emotionally damaged woman who blames men for all the problems she has. For several years I tried to break up with my ex-girlfriend, and the only thing I got was several trips to the police station every time. She accused me of domestic violence, as a way of blackmailing me not to leave her. Don't fall for that emotional manipulation she uses. Leave that woman and look for one that is really worth your effort, love and dedication, not a woman stuck in a stage of her life that she will never return to. After hearing the story of my wife's ex-boyfriend, relationship problems, cheating with ex-boyfriend from high school, for some reason I felt a kind of relief. Because I was beginning to think that the problem was me, not her. No one doubts that my ex-wife has serious mental problems which can only be resolved by seeking help. For some other reason, despite all the lies, the emotional manipulation, the fake pregnancy, the times my wife cheated on me with another man. Product of my emotional dependency, sometimes I thought of looking for a way to save my marriage, go to couples therapy, look for the best specialist to make my wife change. But when I first visited a therapist that was recommended to me by a coworker, I discovered the hard way that it is one thing to be with a woman for love and another thing for compassion or guilt. Feeling compassion and pity for my wife, those emotions are not reason enough to be in a relationship, according to the opinion of the therapist who is treating my case, as a way to take the first steps to overcome my emotional dependence on emotionally unavailable women, but also to overcome the traumas caused by my wife's deception, cheating, lies and emotional manipulation. My family, my friends advised me to leave my wife as soon as possible, that as a wife, I did not have any type of obligation towards her because of the time we were together and the way my wife treated me so badly. My therapist also advised me, if your wife does not want to seek psychiatric help, it is time for you to start the divorce proceedings, because it is not good to offer help to someone who you think does not need it. Despite all the pleas, crying, arguments, accusations of being unfaithful to her, emotional manipulation, that I would never find a woman like her, that she was willing to change, go to couples meetings to learn how to be a good wife, that it would be the wife that I wanted so much, I had already made the decision to divorce my wife. My wife's cheating with another man is something I would never forgive her, no matter how much couple therapy we take together. My wife refused to visit a therapist as a way for her to understand how serious her emotional and mental problems were, in which lies, lack of compassion towards others, emotional manipulation and self-centered behavior were some of the symptoms. But, one of the serious problems that a narcissistic woman has is to believe and make others believe that she has no problem. The one who has problems is you. It is one of the signs that tells you that you are dealing with a narcissistic woman like my ex-wife, who does not want to accept that she is mentally broken, therefore she refuses to seek professional help. 6 months later, the court favored me divorce against her, although they did not give me a monthly payment to my ex-wife and I only had to pay the lawyer used by her for humanitarian reasons. If you are in a situation of emotional dependency with an emotionally damaged woman, as soon as you recognize those symptoms is the right time to get out of that type of toxic relationship. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like this type of video, of a broken marriage, please subscribe to this channel. Leave your comments and share this type of video.